Hello everybody and welcome to A Book and a Beat. I am Trader and I will be taking you through Oath of the Wolf today, which is the second book in the Weeping Wraith series. Typically Book and a Beats on my channel are when I sit down and do my makeup while telling you the entirety of a book, but today we're going to be doing Meteor Hammer because I have to practice. And I think this is a more fun take on the beat portion of the title. So, as I was saying, today we're going to be talking about Oath of the Wolf, Elisabeth Wheatley's second book in the Weeping Wraith series. We are continuing to follow Brynn and Cynric as they deal with new threats, specifically brought to them by the King of Valder, Obric. However, the start of our book takes us to Ulfrin, who is a character that we were introduced in the first book to be a rival of sorts to Cynric. They have a very fun relationship, in my opinion, that Brynn is a huge part of because she is far more diplomatic than Cynric is. Regardless, we are in Ulfric's neck of the woods for the beginning of this book, mainly because I looked up one of their names but not the other one. I keep getting caught. Cynric's concubine from the first book, Rowan? We're gonna go with Rowan. Is getting married to one of Ulfric's, or Ulfrin's, right-hand man, Jarls. They are Jarls. And at this wedding, we start hearing about the lavish gifts that Cynric has been sent by Obric, different person, who is the King of Valder, which is the other sort of ruling kingdom in this area that Umbra, the lands that Cynric is in charge of, is kind of stuck between. In this book, we see a lot more of Cynric's Valdrin heritage, which is just kind of fun. I enjoy it. And there's just more political intrigue. But we hear about some pretty extravagant gifts being given to Cynric, which Brynn obviously thinks is a trap. Or simply that Obric wants Cynric to do something for him, which after the Valdrin, Obric's people, come to the shores of Umbra, not as pillagers this time, but simply as messengers, it becomes clear to both Cynric and Brynn that something is up and Obric clearly wants something from Cynric. So, they head to the heart of the Valdrin Kingdom, which is a kingdom that was put up in the span of about a decade, and it holds thousands of people. It is a high achievement to see the first king of Valdra do this in the span of like a decade. So, as we meet the king, he's a very jovial man, he's very charismatic, and he's an incredibly generous man. We meet a couple other key players to our storyline, which are going to be Tula, his eldest daughter, his son, whose name I'm blanking on right now, and his wife, Somfrin. Yeah, Somfrin. Let's go with that. I'm so much better at this usually. Regardless, we start meeting all of these characters, as well as one of Obric's concubines, whose name starts with a G, who is currently pregnant, while Cynric is off with Obric, learning more about the vast amount of ships that they have created so that they can go and overtake Hyrule. It's not Hyrule. It's close though. Hydrol? Yeah. Hydrol, which is what they want Cedric for, is to swear allegiance to him rather than Bree's uncle. So that's what they're wanting, and we have a lot of internal conflict between Brynn and Cedric at this point, just because Brynn doesn't necessarily want to turn her back against her uncle. However, Cedric also has little fortune tellings because of his goddess, and is like, you know what, we can't actually turn it back on Averick because he will likely kill everybody. So that is kind of the dilemma that they're in at the moment. Is Cendric gets a prophetic image showing a lot of dead people, and Averick's banner flying in the wind. So in hopes to prevent this, they do decide to tentatively work with Averick. However, it's not fully confirmed, and that mainly happens due to the fact that Bryn is soon accused of killing Averick's concubine. His concubine was poisoned to hopefully lead to a miscarriage, was the intent of our killer at this point. Due to the fact that there was a chance, it's Tovlin, or Toval, or it starts with a T again. His son had initially really loved this concubine, and she was initially going to be with him. However, she decided not to because, you know, Averick is more inclined to give her other things that she wants. She has a better standing in society if she goes with Averick rather than his son. So, we then have Bryn going to help her at the behest of the son. And nobody is able to confirm that what she did was helping because she's a sorceress and the only one, in the area. So, she is quickly sent on a witch hunt, essentially, to find her because they think that she killed somebody, specifically the concubine of the king, which is not good. So she ends up running. She runs. And this doesn't go well. But before we get back to that, let's go back to Cendric, who's currently with Averick, who... No, Bryn was accused by the queen, not by Averick. Anyways, Cendric is with Averick, and we hear that Averick has built this massive fleet dedicated to his wife, because this man loves his wife, using yew. Yew as in Y-E-W, the type of wood, which causes issues, particularly when a couple of the other Jarls hear about it, because the only yew that is around here is the grandfather yew, which is a sacred tree that the Valdis worship, because it was planted by the founding fathers of their kingdom, essentially. So, after hearing about this, these couple of Jarls decide to try and kill Averick, of course, which doesn't end well, because despite the fact that Cendric is unarmed, the two of them still beat the crap out of these two, and they get thrown in the thrall pit. Thralls are enslaved people, which still exist, and is not condoned by the main characters. But Bryn is on the run now, and we get Horik. There's no K in his name, it's just Hor. Which, once again, Cendric's cousin, going to find her with a couple of his men. She ends up leading chase into a strange area with strange magic and a bunch of dead trees. And you want to know what those trees are? You want to know what those trees are? Those trees are you. So, they end up going to the sacred grove. I really hope you guys can still hear me, because my fan just kicked on. This sacred grove that is heavily worshipped by these people. And what they end up finding there, besides the destroyed tree, is one of the demons that the founding fathers theoretically killed. Turns out didn't kill him, just trapped him. And these are the wolf, the she-troll, and the snake. With Norse names that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. they find this giant, twisted-looking wolf that promptly sets to kill all of them, and succeeds in killing a couple of Hor's men and taking Hor captive. Bryn, being Bryn, follows because, frankly, I don't know how else Cendric would survive knowing his cousin was dead. So, with that, she heads into the den and ends up killing the she-troll by decapitation. We find out through this entire process that these beings can only be killed if they are, like, dealt a death blow, essentially. That's the only way that they die. So the she-troll gets dead, but the wolf still be alive, and there's this weird trunk-looking thing that moves. Spoiler alert, it's a giant snake. Like, massive snake. Regardless, Bryn and Hor get free, and then Hor also chucks her in the thrall pit, which is where we catch up with Cendric as the other two traitors are thrown into the thrall pit. I'm pretty sure Cendric punches Hor in the face for, chucking his wife into a thrall pit. Which, you know what? Valid. So, Bryn is back. She is still charged with treason. Well, they're gonna, have opinions about it at some point. And the king doesn't really like it. But at this point, I think now is when, Bryn has suspects that it was either the queen or it was Tula, Alvric's daughter, who poisoned the concubine, mainly due to the fact that it is believed that Torvial, the son, it is suspected that he actually got the concubine pregnant instead, and Alvric's not going to get cuckolded in his own household. Just not going to go well for him. So we end up having the two of them potentially trying to, keep their brother and son alive. So Bryn and Cendric actually have a conversation with Tula where they have a better understanding of what's happening, because Tula doesn't outright say anything, but she also goes like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna let you in on this. I need you to kill my dad. You need to do it before the wine casket's open tonight. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? So there's that whole fun thing. Cendric, I think it's before this, also threatens the queen that she needs to tell Alvric about what, because we find out it was her who poisoned the concubine. Find out what she did, and why, or else Cendric will. Man really wants his wife alive. But we pop back to that dinner that night. Good and merriment. Bryn and Cendric do nothing because I don't think it'll go well for them. So they decide not to kill Alvric. And because they decide not to kill Alvric, the entire longhouse, which is where their big dining area is, gets barricaded and set ablaze by Tula. Like, wholeheartedly. Like, she fully sat there and went, well, if you're not going to do it, I guess you're going to die with them. And it almost works. However, I would like to remind you that A, this entire place got made very recently, and B, Bryn is a sorceress. So there's still a lot of Ka that is moving through the actively drying wood. So she is able to manipulate it so that a hole breaks out through the back. So that a couple people can get out. It's not a ton of people. It's the king, it's Bryn, it's Cendric, it's Vanna, and Hor. Those are the named characters that we get that get out. And Bryn and Cendric immediately head off to start trying to kill some of the people that are starting the fire. They do so successfully. The two of them work very well together when they're fighting. And essentially a whole fight breaks out between these two factions of this area, which are going to be Alvric's forces and Tula's forces. There's a decent amount of battle here. There's an actual like shield wall that's put in place. There's a fight. The fight doesn't last very long. I think it's like a chapter or two at most. Before Avrick's people claim success over this like main battlefield area. And before the giant wolf and the giant snake show up. So with those two new threats here, and with Tula's people subdued, handled, whatever you want to say, it then turns into the issue of Avrick, Bryn, and Cynric needing to take care of the giant, like this thing is huge, it's like 4 long boats wide, not wide, long. It's a big snake. It's a massive snake. I need you to be clear. It's a massive snake. So, Bryn and Cynric take off towards the snake. Because frankly, Bryn's the only one who could probably kill this thing, and everybody knows it. So, they try to take it towards the water, mainly because water is a huge source of Ka. Because that's the only way that Bryn would be able to take it down is just with massive amounts of Ka pouring into her. So they head towards the beach. Avrick's people also, well, Avrick specifically, also wants to kill the giant snake, so they're kind of making it hard. But eventually, Cynric, being Cynric, spears the snake in both of its eyes. Which, you know, massive snake, at least like 2-story tall. I don't know how it happens, but it does. So the snake is enraged, it follows Cynric instead, and towards the beach, and then Bryn cuts off its head. Wolf still exists, and it is Hor that is dealing with that, so Avrick ends up not taking care of any of the giant issues himself, which doesn't look good for him, but that's not the point, because the battle's over, everybody's won, everything's great, except for the fact that things are a little chaotic still, so. Essentially, all the threats are neutralized except for Avrick and his grief, which we see in the morning light. Avrick has found Tula's body, and he will not let anybody touch her. Not a single person can touch her. So, a couple of people try and go up. He's a crazed man and tries to kill them. And it turns out that Bryn's the only one who can come up and speak to him. They have a short little conversation, being like, hey, Vanna wants to go look for your wife in the burning house. Is it fine that she does that? She's going to take Cynric and Hor, and that's it. Those are the only 2 men who are going to go find your wife. Cool, awesome. Can we move your dead daughter's body? Fantastic. And mind you, and she also goes, by the way, you are going to make Cynric a Jarl. We're going to give you tides. But you're going to make my husband a Jarl, and he just kind of just grumbles. But we get the little funerals that are talked about very shortly, but they're very lavish for both his traitor daughter and his wife, as well as his concubine, who is buried with his wife. I still could not get a read on how much the wife liked the concubine throughout the story, but we get to the end of the book. It is confirmed that Bryn is pregnant. This is kind of hinted out throughout the story. It's just not important enough. The she-troll is the one who brings it up, so like halfway through the book we kind of start getting inklings, but we don't have any sort of confirmation. But yeah, they end happily ever after, just like the first book did. Now, on to my thoughts. This is an issue that I've realized that I just have with Elisabeth Wheatley's writing, which is things just go right. And things go right very quickly in this series. The stakes, while they are built up decently well throughout the entirety of the story, the actual climactic moments don't hit very hard because they're over within maybe 10 to 12 pages, which is sometimes a chapter or 2 and sometimes 1 chapter. But overall, things just kind of go right. There's also the fact that Bryn does not know the language, so there's a lot of like, oh, this is mildly frustrating because Bryn doesn't know the language and doesn't actually know what's going on. But it makes sense for the story, so I'm not going to be super upset about that. I have incredibly mixed feelings about the fact that Bryn is pregnant. I have such mixed feelings at the fact that Bryn is pregnant. mainly because I don't want her to get sidelined in her own story, because that is what typically happens in these fantasy worlds, but I don't really know if it's actually what is going to happen. Overall, the book felt very, very fast. It was roughly 328 pages, and a lot happens in what feels like a very short amount of time. Snapper and Gwen, the two dogs, are cute as always. I love reading about them and hearing about them within the story. They're not as prevalent as they were before. The Die Hounds were a bigger deal in the first book than what they are in the second book. But they still show up. It's still good to see them. I want more of Issa, who is Bryn's sorceress apprentice type situation. Her lady in waiting is what she is. But we don't get a ton of her in this book, and it makes me sad. I wanted more of Issa after the first book, too. I just think her character's interesting. But yeah. I didn't mention it because it's definitely not the main point of the Weeping Wraith series, but these books are a little bit spicy. It's quite well written. There are 2 scenes, and it's done relatively tastefully. I didn't really care for them just because I was more focused on the rest of the plot that was happening. I feel like spice scenes in high fantasy can sometimes work, but I feel like most of the time they just kind of they don't even necessarily take away, but they just kind of distract from the main plot, and I'm like, I don't really need this, but I'm gonna take it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I rated the book a 3.5 or a 4-star book. I am hoping that there is a little bit more to the series as it goes on, and we get a little less of the everything's fine at the end of the book. I would like it if the threats stay prevalent throughout books in the series a little bit more, which I am hoping to get in the Dangerous Assassin series, which I should be starting soon-ish. I don't want to knock my mic. But yeah, those are my opinions and thoughts, and I hope you guys like the new way that I'm doing Book and Beats. I don't think that this is going to be consistent. I have no idea what I just tried to do there. But for anybody who's wondering, the shots that I were doing was an elbow shot, which is this one, a dragon wrap, which is this one, and then dark scorpion, which is that one. Yeah, if you also need any Meteor Hammer stuff, look up Bensai on YouTube. He's the one that I get all of my stuff from. So yeah.